Hello everyone, today I'm bringing you the Mannequin of the Month for May 2026. As is usual, the topic we're going to talk about, the kit we have set up on the Mannequin here, was chosen via a poll over on Patreon. The corporal tier over there, of course, get to vote each month on what's going to be covered in Mannequin of the Month. And what topped the poll this month was the kit of a gunner in the Royal Artillery serving in Italy circa March 1944. And more specifically, this is based on photographs of men of the 102nd Medium Regiment Royal Artillery, who were equipped with the 5.5-inch gun howitzer, quite a famous piece of British artillery, medium-weight artillery. Still a fairly hefty bit of kit when you consider it was considered a medium gun at the time. It's the next sort of step down from heavy artillery, siege artillery effectively, if you want to consider it that way. So quite a heavy, quite a long range bit of artillery. And the fact that this is a gunner serving with a piece of artillery at relative long range will be shown in part by the equipment that's carried here. Photographs of the Royal Artillery serving in Italy are very interesting. Of course, it was quite an artillery intense campaign. Obviously, there was some mobility there, but there were many periods during the Italian campaign when it was quite static and obviously comparable to the First World War, and artillery was extremely important in those situations and ended up firing from fixed positions for quite prolonged periods of time. So from that perspective, it's the artillery war in the Italian campaign is quite interesting in and of itself. So I thought it would be interesting to look at an artilleryman's kit. And certainly later on in 1944, things become even more sort of stripped down and scruffy and so forth. Going into the winter of 1944, it's really interesting to look at just what men were getting away with in terms of cold weather kit and so forth, because I think there is a bit of a perception of spit and polish and still keeping everything uniform. And obviously in certain situations that naturally breaks down in the field due to just basic practicalities of keeping warm and the kit and equipment that is necessary for a particular role. Obviously, a lot of people consider infantry when thinking of the World War II soldier and full set of equipment and all the rest of it. As we'll see here, the web equipment in particular is heavily stripped down to better suit the needs of the individual serving a gun, where the small arms are obviously not being handled all the time and the ammunition for them isn't necessary, and other accoutrements necessary for more mobile operations again aren't necessary, firing from fixed positions. So we'll talk about more of that as we look at the Mannequin in more detail. This is probably the most basic set of equipment I've had on a Mannequin for Mannequin of the Month, I think, in terms of the kit that's missing basically. So we'll talk about that in some detail now. Starting at the top as we normally do, we have here the Mark II steel helmet. And obviously, basically the standard British helmet at this time. The Mark III, I think, was in existence this early in 44, but was certainly in existence. I don't believe it was being issued out. Certainly wouldn't arrive in Italy, of course. It was only issued really in the field to certain units and the assault during the Normandy landings, and then obviously they would continue to use them. So the Mark II, as far as the Italian campaign is concerned, the standard helmet right the way through the end of the war. You would also see small arms. There's a bit of a lag in terms of small arms in Italy as well. The rifle number 1 Mark III Star was still in widespread use. The number 4 would take longer to reach the Italian campaign, the Italian theatre, than, for example, its use in Northwest Europe. So just a point to note here as well. The uniform worn would be a full suit of battle dress, of course. We only have the blouse on the Mannequin here because it is a torso Mannequin. But you'd have the battle dress trousers as well, anklets, and of course the hobnail boots. But we have the blouse here from the 1940 pattern set of battle dress uniform, which is very similar to the preceding battle dress serge, but has the lined collar, slightly different cut, slightly different positioning of the pockets. Basically the second standard version of battle dress, still very common in 1944, even though the simplified version with lacquered pleats, exposed buttons and so forth had been introduced by this time. Certainly in the Italian campaign, still very common to see, alongside War Aid, of course. War Aid was also very common to see in terms of the battle dress issued in the Italian theatre of operations. The web equipment is, of course, the standard British 1937 pattern equipment, in this case set up with cartridge carriers rather than basic pouches, and it's pretty clear to see in the photographs of the 102nd Medium Regiment, the men are using cartridge carriers, those who are wearing webbing, but they don't have any ammunition in them. They're completely flat, the pouches, as we have here, most carrying a single charger. So again, when considering artillerymen serving the guns, if you're far enough removed from the front line, firing obviously very much in support at long range, no real need to have ammunition on you in that regard. It could be issued out in emergency if required. You have the ability to carry it by having the web equipment, but there's no need, and obviously in the photographs of men serving the guns, the small arms, the rifles, are off to one side and not being carried, of course. So from that point of view, we're looking at a medium regiment Royal Artillery firing at longer range and small arms and the ammunition for them, not actually carried on the person when serving the guns. Fairly clear to see in the photographs, quite interesting from that perspective. We do have the cartridge carriers there. These, of course, clip onto the belt using the C-hooks on the back, standard 1937 pattern web belt there, and they're then supported by the braces, as you can see here. They almost have a built-in brace attachment basically stitched onto the back, which comes up here to this buckle, and that serves the role of the buckle you'd find on the top of the basic pouch. So these cartridge carriers are directly supported by the braces, as you can see. And we have a mixed set of equipment here. We have later production, simplified production braces with the 1-inch section simply stitched onto the 2-inch section, which passes over the shoulder there. So a simplification of the design, which had been introduced to allow other manufacturers who couldn't use the reduction woven method, which was originally used to produce these, to come into the frame and start manufacturing webbing. So a pair of those braces there. Just a detail to note of the particular way these have been manufactured. So 1937 pattern there. What we've seen here is basically what the equipment consists of in this case. We'll see what's missing as we move this round and have a look at the other sides and the back of the Mannequin. So moving this round, you can first of all see the side profile of the Mark II helmet there. The epaulette, the battle dress, which is actually buttoned up and over the brace, which was quite commonly done. The shoulder straps for the haversack were quite often worn over the top, so the haversack could be discarded if required. But sometimes they were worn underneath the epaulettes on the battle dress as well. But certainly the braces tended to be worn underneath put over the shoulder, underneath the epaulette, which obviously stops them slipping off the shoulders. So that is just a point to note here, very common to see in period photographs. You can see the forward curve of the arm of the battle dress there. We've not looked at battle dress for a little while, so I'll just reiterate that here. You can see how it's actually tailored to give that forward curve to the arm, which assists basically in movement of bringing up a rifle to take aim, particularly in a prone position. So you have that forward curve to the arm there. You can see the belt for the 1937 pattern equipment coming around the hip here. You can see that the equipment is basically unblancoed, which is again very common to see in theatre. Equipment often slightly grubby from use in the field, but unblancoed as we see here. And what's conspicuous by its absence round on the hip is the water bottle. Normally on the right hip, by this time in particular, you'd see the water bottle carried on the brace ends, but that is conspicuous by its absence, again copied directly from the photographs. When operating in a static position, obviously it's less necessary, there is less need to have the water bottle on you at all times, and in this case it has been discarded. So that's the right-hand side of the Mannequin there. Moving around to look at the back, you can really see just how stripped down this set of equipment is. We have the braces coming down to support the back of the belt using the two buckles here. You can see the loop where these cross over in the back here, but no other equipment is carried at all. There's no water bottle, and as we'll see, there's no bayonet round on the left hip either. So very plain in that regard. You see the detail, the rear seam of the battle dress there, and you can see how this is a blouse with the tightened waistband there, and the fact that this does indeed blouse over. It's loose around the body and then tight and drawn in at the waist, of course, using the waist belt and buckle. And you can just see here, I think under the belt, no, it's a little bit further out. Sorry, they're concealed on this. You can see the stitching. Just realised I can't really illustrate my point. You can see the stitching here for the concealed button loops that are inside the waistband, where this could be buttoned onto the trousers, which is of course another key element of battle dress. The blouse buttons onto the trousers, effectively making it one garment, I guess you could say. Certainly stops them splitting and rucking up at the back when you bend forwards. That's the idea. So that's the back of the Mannequin. And then we move around to look at the left-hand side. If we lift the arm out of the way here, we have no bayonet. The bayonet would, if it was carried, would be carried in a frog on this hip, but no bayonet carried in this instance. Again, as an artilleryman serving a 5.5-inch gun howitzer, if you're coming to blows with a bayonet, things have gone disastrously wrong. And certainly in the relatively static periods in the Italian campaign, the likelihood of that was limited to some degree, certainly. If things became more fluid again, of course, no doubt the equipment carried the requirements for what would be carried by an individual gunner, artilleryman, would change. But in the scenario we're looking at in March of 1944, the men serving the guns are not carrying bayonets. They're just carrying the very basic stripped down set of equipment we've seen here on the Mannequin. So I hope you found it interesting looking at this. As I say, I think this is the most stripped down set of 1937 pattern equipment I've had on the Mannequin for looking at Second War British kit. So from that perspective, it's quite interesting. As I say, referenced directly from photographs of the time. And it makes good sense, obviously, for men serving the guns who are not immediately going to be using small arms. And from the perspective of reenacting, which I'll just bring in here towards the end, I think this is a good example of the sort of thing you could put together when you're first starting out. Obviously, there's no need for a respirator, there's no need for a bayonet, you don't even need a water bottle to accurately recreate this kit, but it would give you the opportunity to put together a basic set of kit as we have here, while you're still expanding your collection and your knowledge and so forth. You can research these particular units, for example, and you could put together a set of kit to represent an artilleryman in that scenario. And you could do it very easily without having to buy a full set of 1937 pattern. So from that perspective, quite useful, I would say, for those starting out, is to look at these sort of setups and perhaps work from that, and then go down the line of getting the rest of the kit together to put together a set of infantry equipment, for example. So from that perspective, could be useful, is what I'm saying, to reenactors to consider. If you're starting out and this is sort of British kit is an interest of yours, this is a good way of collecting bits and pieces, putting together something which is nominally complete for a specific role, keeps the interest there and everything, while still collecting other bits and pieces to make a more versatile set of kit that can be used for different situations. So just something to note here at the end. I think that's possibly quite useful from a reenacting point of view. It keeps the interest flowing, allows you to put together a set of kit fairly easily while picking up other bits and pieces, and obviously it just keeps the enthusiasm there. I hope you found it interesting looking at this in the video. If you have and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And of course it's over on Patreon, the corporal tier over there, as I said at the start, which allows you to vote each month on what's going to be covered. And as I always say to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods, it really is greatly appreciated. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch with me but you don't really use social media, there is an email address down there as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now.